I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. It is Friday, you guys. We have made it. We have arrived. The weekend is beginning. Hallelujah. I don't know about you guys, but I had the most chaotic, insane week this week. So I'm really looking forward to kicking my feet up. Anywho, for today's episode, we have a longer true crime story to go over that just got resolution, but it is a little bit longer, but it's very satisfying in the end to get a little justice. But before that, we're going to talk about two other topics. First and foremost, is slavery on the ballot? So the remnants of slavery still linger heavily, you guys. We know this. And in November, 5 different states essentially have slavery on the ballot in the form of forced manual labor by people convicted on certain crimes. You see, this is a type of loophole left over from the days of slavery that forces people to work for no pay. Many state constitutions include language that bans slavery except for instances where a crime has been committed. That's actually what it says in a number of states. And this was originally a way for formerly Confederate states to maintain the dynamic of slavery. If they could arrest Black people and put them in prison, then they could continue to profit off of their unpaid labor, just as they did in the throes of American slavery. They would arrest Black individuals for things as simple as talking too loudly or not yielding on the sidewalk. These incarcerations then, of course, had ripple effects throughout the Black community. These families were super affected by a loved one being thrown in prison. And now we can find the essence of those biases in the fact that people of color receive longer sentences on average than crimes committed by their white counterparts, and that Black and brown people are more likely to be convicted, period. But now, at least with this language gone from the state constitutions, forced labor could be legally challenged and deemed illegal here in the United States once and for all. We'll see how these votes go. And then our second smaller story for today, I just more wanted to clear something up in case you guys hear this, just, to keep you guys in the know. Children will not be required to have a coronavirus vaccine by the CDC. So there are these false news stories circulating online and even on some prominent news channels that the CDC will soon be requiring coronavirus vaccines for school children. But the CDC actually put out a statement clarifying that this is absolutely false. They don't even have the power to require such a thing as vaccines because that is determined by the states and local districts. So if you hear that being repeated, just rest assured that it's absolutely not the case. And the next step for today, we're going to be jumping into the Kristin Smart case that just got a little resolution. Let's jump in. So in case you've never heard of the Kristin Smart case, we will go ahead and give you guys an overview to catch you up on what happened just this past week. So Kristin Smart was a bright young woman who was a freshman in college out in California in 1996. She was from Stockton, California originally, but decided to stay in state for school. She lived on campus at Cal Poly. While at school, she called her parents every Sunday. She was actually kind of having a hard time in school before she went missing, just balancing schoolwork, her ADHD, her job, her friends, all the things that college kids are juggling. On Friday before Memorial Day, however, she called her parents and left them a voicemail saying, quote, good news, I'll call you on Sunday, end quote. Kristen was going out that night and begged her friend Margarita to go with her. Kristen did not have a dorm key on her or her wallet that night. As it was Memorial Day weekend, the campus was actually pretty quiet as people kind of cleared out and traveled for the holiday weekend. Eventually, the two friends could not find a party to go to because, again, it had cleared out for the holiday weekend and Margarita had kind of had enough. She didn't want to go out in the first place, so she decided to go back home. Kristen was kind of pissed because she was really dead set on going out, and she started walking away from her friend to go find a party on her own. She eventually found one at an unofficial fraternity house near campus. A lot of men at this party were interested in Kristen. She was tall, she was blonde, she was beautiful, and she did end up drinking quite a bit that night. Eventually, two students after the party found her lying on a random lawn, super drunk, and they were worried about her. So those two students helped get her up and tried to get her home. And that's when a third student runs up to them, 19-year-old Paul Flores. They reached the other two students' dorms first, as they were just closer, and Paul said that he lived near Kristen. His dorm was close to hers, and so he said he was happy to take her home on his own. Paul initially claimed to have watched Kristen walk safely into her dorm building, but when she never showed back up to her dorm room the following day, her friends and family got worried. And when she missed her family's weekly Sunday call, they knew something was wrong. Paul was interviewed initially by campus police, repeatedly actually at the beginning, and they noticed that he had a ton of injuries at the time, scratches all over his hands, rug burns on his knees, and a black eye. He did not have solid reasons for any of these injuries and lied about his black eye. Paul was then arrested for something separate, and when the police arrested him, this is right after Kristen went missing, he kept trying to leave and seemed extremely anxious. When the police asked him, "Where are you in such a hurry to get off to?" he said he needed to clean up some concrete at his mother's house. Whoa. If you listen to a lot of true crime, you know pouring concrete after someone goes missing is never a good sign. Paul also had a history of violence, aggression, harassment, strange behavior, and sexual assault against women. He had stalked people, he had grabbed coworkers, he had scaled buildings to watch women in their homes, and much more. But when it came to Kristen's case, the campus police kind of dragged their feet, and eventually the actual police had to come in with dogs and search the campus, as well as the city as a whole. They picked up a scent in Paul Flores' room, and the dogs hit on his mattress, a trash can, and a telephone. And they even separated these items out to make sure that the dogs would hit on his exact trash can, and they continued to do so. And this is despite the fact that Paul had moved out and the janitor had cleaned up the entire room. For years, police tried to investigate his parents' homes, doing multiple searches of multiple properties, but Nothing came of them as they kind of faced obstacles with each one. And it's hard to kind of go into details, but, there was concrete in different areas that they weren't allowed to break up. And, every search seemed to have some type of obstacle, some type of reason why they couldn't carry it out to the full extent. Again, this crime took place back in 1996, you guys, and it's been a long time since this all went down. Paul Flores is now 45 years old and has definitely added to his criminal record. His father, who was charged with helping him hide Kristen's body, is now 81 years old. Their trials took place over the past 3 months, and finally, after all this time, the jury found Paul Flores guilty of murdering Kristin Smart while attempting to rape her. They found his father, however, not guilty of concealing her body, which still has never been found. For the family, justice was great, but they attest that they will keep looking to find her forever. And who can blame them? Losing a loved one in this way is something nobody should have to endure. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Character cannot be developed in ease and in quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from